Dimond, Diamond.
A precious gem of the most valuable kind. When pure, it is clear.
Dimond, Dimond.
A family name bringing traditions of love, hard work, and moral values.
This is the Dimond Education podcast with my mom and dad, Jon and Kellee, England.
Welcome to the Dimond Education podcast.
Hi, this is Kellee. Today we're excited. We have Karee with us, who is Karee Yates, who is a partner in Dimond Education. And we're going to have a roundtable discussion. And since it's one of our first podcasts, introduce Dimond Education and our vision and what we're all about. Okay, so let's start with, how about, Jon, you start with about you, your bio and your education, and tell about you.
Yeah, so I'm a dad of five little people, 5 kids. And so as you know, since you're my wife, but yeah, so I'm a dad of 5, and I've been in education for a long time. So I've spent 14 years in the public schools as an elementary teacher, but also as an elementary principal. And I've just really been on this long journey, I think, over the last couple years of realizing that education is more than what we traditionally see in our traditional schools. And the traditional schools are fine for some kids, but they're not the best fit for every kid. And so I've just really been on this long journey of what is education and what does that mean. So,
And tell us a little bit about your education yourself.
Oh, my own personal education, growing up, education was a great thing for me growing up, actually. So in high school, I had a really great science teacher who, really inspired me. And part of the reason why I became a teacher was because of him. I feel like, I grew up in a low-income home where we were technically homeless when I was in 5th grade. We were evicted from our home, and I spent a year sleeping on my sister's couch in her basement. And, but I found that education really was a way to get out of poverty for me personally. And it's been a great thing. I mean, I look at my brothers and my sister, and they're all doing well, and they've used education to get out. And so that's what inspired me to become a teacher. And just as a teacher, I chose to work in the low-income schools because I wanted to create that same inspiration for other kids and hopefully be kind of like what my science teacher was for me and inspire them to be that. And so I went in, and I have a bachelor's degree in elementary education, and I have a master's degree in educational leadership. And so that's kind of my educational background and and just the journey from that has been amazing. So,
Would you say your education stopped after college?
No, my education definitely didn't stop after college. So, I've continued to learn, and I would say actually this last year I've really had a big awakening of what education can be. And it's definitely changed. While I was as a teacher, I felt like education was what happened at school, but I've grown from that, and I would say that it's more now from what it was. So
awesome.
Yeah. So
Love that.
Karee, what about you? What's your
Tell about
kind
you
of background and
your family and your education.
Yeah.
So I'm a mother of 3 children, a 14-year-old, almost 15-year-old, 12-year-old, and an 8-year-old, and those are my main focus in life. But I also have a background as a nurse practitioner, so and I work as a nurse practitioner as well, and in some leadership roles. And then let's see, my background or education and how I got to that point. Kind of listening to Jon, I realized I do remember the time that I decided I wanted to be a nurse. I had surgery when I was young at Primary Children's, and there was this young nurse that took care of me and was really impressed me as a child. So I decided at that point I wanted to be a nurse. And So I got my undergraduate degree at Weber State University. Went on and got my master's degree at the University of Utah as a nurse practitioner. And then I've been working as a nurse practitioner for 16 years now. So,
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been a little bit of time. I'm getting old.
We're all there with you.
Yes. So, and I, like Jon, I've understood that, and just in my career, learning is always happening, and I'm so grateful for that. Boy, medicine wouldn't be where it's at if learning didn't continue to happen either.
Yeah.
So that's, and I'd have to say a big proponent of that is our family and a mother that supported us in our education and was such an example of that too.
Yeah.
She went back at an older age and got her degree. So
Yeah.
we took chemistry together in college.
You and your mom.
My mom, yes. So it's been a lifelong experience of learning and ongoing, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
So,
That's what's nice.
yes.
His education is eternal.
Yes.
So, yeah. So my name is Kellee England. As my husband Jon said, we have 5 kids.
And one of the things, I don't know if you mentioned that you and Karee are sisters for...
Oh yeah. So
yes.
Karee and I are sisters. So you'll hear us share similar things about our mom and education. So
And our voices probably sound similar.
we get told that. So you might have a hard time on the podcast recognizing who's which one. But so I have 5 kids from 16 to 6, almost 7-year-old.
He is 7. He's... No, oh no.
No,
he's
he
almost
turned 7 in September.
Yes.
So
I know my kids' birthdays.
So my education has been an awesome experience. So I, of course, grew up in the public education system. We grew up in Coalfield, Wyoming. Some amazing teachers growing up. And then, like Karee said, we had a mom who education was important. And I went on to Ricks College, now BYU, Idaho. And the U of U. I got my associates in recreation education and then a bachelor's in parks, recreation, and tourism with the emphasis in recreational therapy. What inspired me in that is that I've loved sports and outdoors and active learning, and that's kind of where I've learned a lot of principles and life learning experiences. But then I decided I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And when I started having kids and being a mom, I fell in love with mothering, and I've just continued. I homeschool a few of my children now and just love learning with them. There's a lot I've learned while teaching them along with them, and have loved that. But like Karee said, we had a mother. When she was older, when I was 12, my parents got a divorce, and she had to go back and get her education, but she never stopped. She always had a book in her hand.
A bag of books that she took everywhere she went.
Yeah.
Was a learner. She tried entrepreneur. She was an entrepreneur. She opened, I
give her a hard time because it's not every sophomore in high school got to go haul garbage for our town because my mom started a garbage business.
Yeah. So she did a garbage business. She did a cafe, like a restaurant.
And then a decorating business.
Yeah, Trey Nate. Her and her sisters did a decorating business. And then she went back and actually got her degree in teaching and taught home economics and health and sewing and interior design classes. And I mean, our mom was always sewing and improving those skills.
We didn't gain those skills as well as she did.
No, I'm trying. Trying to get that straight line down on the sewing machine.
It's pretty straight.
When it's a box shape. When you go around the corners, it makes it a little harder. But, and then, so just having a mom education was important. And
So for both of you, I mean, you asked me, but for both of you, has your view of what education is changed I would say in the recent past?
Oh, considerably. I told myself I'd never homeschool. I don't know how I'd ever do that. And I just couldn't think or fathom at that point in time. But over the last couple of years, I've realized that there's so many different opportunities and ways that children can be educated, and us parents can be a big part of that.
Yeah.
In making that decision and making it a positive influence in our children's lives.
Yeah.
So it ultimately, it's harder for Kellee and I to minimize what we're trying to do and learn and teach with all the different curriculums and options that are out there.
Yeah, the books. I'm like, and we're always building our library, and then John laughs at us because Karee and I will sit down and like, did you see this? Did you see this book? Did you see that? And then it's like, okay, we need to simplify because maybe our kids aren't as excited about some of these things as we
It's more of a choice for ourselves and what we think our kids will enjoy. And
So, yeah. So,
You guys are curriculum junkies.
yes, we are. Maybe that's what we need to do is the curriculum junkie, right? So, yeah. So let's talk a little about, okay, we love our name, Dimond Education, and there is history and background to why we are Dimond Education. I'm actually so Karee was the one that came up with the name Dimond, and I'm gonna let her tell us how she came up with it and kind of why we're named what we are.
Well, as we mentioned earlier, our mom was, had that entrepreneurial spirit growing up, as we know, and there were different times that we were just thinking of what we could do, and my mom loved her maiden name, not her maiden name, I should say, but the family name of Dimond, and so that's where Dimond initially came from, or has come from, and that's why it has the spelling that it is without the A in it. So our great-grandfather, Dimond, came over on a ship at age 6 from England, and he thought, the story that my mom told me is that he'd overheard his aunts speaking, and they were saying how he's just so young and he wouldn't be able to make it, and he took that he thought he was going to die on this voyage over to America, but he still had the courage and was brave, and he made the journey over here and didn't die, of course.
Hence we're here.
Yes. And just a big proponent, looking back in our history, learning more about him, of their support of growth and learning, and that courage in that. And then our grandmother as well. She went to university and instilled that in her children. So our mother, of the priority of learning and growth and education.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and even our great-grandpa, he was an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And helped other people get started in the cattle business and
The
sheep business and all that. And then he actually thought education was important, went back and got, what was his degree? Oh, I forgot. Anyway, got education later in life. And then it was interesting because as we read about him, he sought for medicine. He sought out different specialties, from chiropractor to, family practice when they were seeking help for things like alternative medicines and things. And then, just his life of inspiring others too. So, which has carried on to our parents and cousins and everything. So, yeah.
Exactly. So that's where the Dimond Education name come from.
Well, and it's fun when you look up diamond and what it means. It's the most valuable and precious. So we loved that with education. And our vision is that we really want to help families discover the most valuable education for themselves and their children and help them discover a lifelong love of learning. I mean, it's eternal. Education is eternal. So
I think that's been one of the interesting things that we've gone back and looked at definitions too.
Yeah.
And seeing how important words and truth in those words are.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of when we looked at Dimond. Do you remember, Kellee, what we learned from that?
Well, it was the most valuable and transparent, which when I think of transparent, I think of truth, and I have the definition right here. So it's a mineral gem or precious stone of the most valuable kind, remarkable for its hardness as it scratches all other minerals. So
I like that next part actually, when it says, when pure, the diamond is usually clear, but when it's pure, the diamond is usually clear. And so I think that's another great part of like the Dimond Education idea of the diamond. We want education to be clear. So, because things that are clear are easy to understand.
Well,
and I think that's an important part.
When you're educating yourself, you are trying to find out what is clear and pure and pull that out of, because we're men, we're imperfect.
Yeah.
So in the writings, you're going to find some muddy, maybe rough stuff, but you can pull out those principles and those truths
And I think it
learn from
even
it.
goes into it like in that regard, because in its, you think of a diamond, I'm sure in its initial states, it's not beautiful or not,
Yeah,
but then it can become such.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then even education, how much, I looked it up in the 1828 Webster Dictionary.
1838, isn't it?
No, 1828.
Oh,
And
I'm learning things still too.
and how much it is centered around God, because ultimately you need your education centered around God to discover truth. So
What was the other word that we found? And we ended up looking it up, and then it led us to,
the first water,
yes.
because in the diamond it says, when pure and transparent is said to be of the first water. And we looked up first water, what that meant.
Yeah.
And
that was what led us to kind of a quote that we really like, and I don't know if necessarily our value statement, but something that we want to remember and go by in Dimond Education. And that it's bringing to light the most valuable degree of brilliance in your child's education.
Yeah.
So, yeah, bringing to light.
light.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So speaking of our children's education, Karee, what are you doing to educate your children, like formally educate your children as opposed to just the education that happens, but what's the not formal education, I guess?
So at this point in time, like I said, over the past couple of years, there's been a lot of, initially my kids were in the public school system, and I didn't have any concerns or, to any degree in that. And then over the past couple of years, just what's arisen, in our world today, it brought to light a lot of concerns, but ultimately what led me to make the decisions that I am now, which I'll get to in a minute, is I looked up our proficiency scores in our area, in our school system, and I was not impressed. When the vast majority are less than 50% and more around that 30 to 40 percentile in your math and reading and literature and science, we can do better.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think it's interesting because those proficiency scores are based off of what the government deems what we should learn. So it's not even off, it's to me even a lower level than what God wants us to learn.
yes.
So if we're 60% proficient in that compared to what God, you know what I'm saying?
What we're capable of and
What-
what our children are capable
Well, and
of.
the lifelong learning.
God-given gifts.
Yeah. So,
So it ultimately led to last year, of my 3 children, I homeschooled 2 of them, my 6th grader and 2nd grader at that time. And then our oldest child went into a small public-private school. And it's called Ascend, and it's a mentoring school. And so its focus there, it is God-centered, and so they get to pray, they get to learn about God in their studies. But it brings in science and history and constitution and our just good, strong foundation of core beliefs, that we have, my husband and I, and super impressed. And then homeschooling, it was a learning year, being our first year, and luckily we were able to help each other out in that that year, but it went really well. We were very pleased with how it went. So, and this is so going in our second year. I'll be homeschooling our youngest child, and then my 6th grader, now 7th grader, will be attending the same school that her brother is at Ascend. And she's super excited for that as well. I don't know how she took so much to mom teaching her math, and so that's and she likes to have a lot of friends. She's a little social butterfly, so
Yeah.
yes. But our youngest son, he's loved it most days.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and he's kind of more your homebody
yes.
too, so he's cute.
So it's been a wonderful thing, and it will, I'm sure, always be variable and changing, especially as we approach the high school years and all that's available to us in our education.
Yeah.
So, they can be dual enrollment or, collegiate, courses and things like that can be done at a younger age. So.
Depending on what they want to do. Tech, entrepreneur,
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
So that's what's awesome is there is a lot of options out there. That is, we had a paradigm shift of what's out there and the opportunities, and we don't have to fit inside of a square box. There's a lot you can do.
Yeah.
So
Just really realizing each child is so individual and they can have such an individualized learning experience.
yeah, and they have strengths
Yes.
that you can.
And then they gain that love of learning because they get to.
Yeah.
Emphasize their strength. They get to work on the things that they're interested in, and that's been
Yeah.
pretty awesome too. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So John, did you want to tell about our kids?
Yeah, so our kids, so last year we had our oldest started out at the public high school, and by halfway through the year we were doing half homeschool, half her going to the public school, and this year she's going to be 100% homeschooled. We're doing some things with the local ATC with her because she's really interested in like things like graphic design, and she loves painting nails, so she's going to get her like nail tech certificate and things like that. And she's become quite entrepreneurial and is looking for the opportunity to maybe start her own nail business or hair business or something like that. And so that's been really fun to listen to. So Kate, our second oldest, is with Karee's oldest is attending Ascend, and she loved it last year. One of the things I loved that she said last year, because we asked her, Ascend only goes 3 days a week with an online math class, one extra day. So there's 4 days of math, but 3 days of actually attending the school. And so the thing that I loved is we asked Kate about her experience last year with Ascend.
There's heavy read. They're reading a lot of the classics,
Yes,
so there's
there's
heavy reading in
ton of reading, and I would call Ascend a classical education.
It is.
And it's one of the things that I just found really interesting was the fact that we asked Kate, like, how's school? Do you like it? She's like, Dad, it's a lot more work, but I love it. And that was just eye-opening to me. Is it wasn't the amount of work that made the difference. It was the fact that she had a chance to shine and thrive in her education. So
And it fits Kate.
totally.
Kate just likes to sit and write and think and have discussions, and so it was a great fit for her. It's a great fit. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this year Sylvie, our third oldest, will be attending Ascend as well. We homeschooled her last year, and that was actually great too because Sylvie loves to just get things done. And so with homeschooling, she was able to get a lot of her education done in a very short amount of time, and it gave her time to do other things that she's interested in.
But Sylvie will sit and read and read and read and read.
And she will just sit and read and read and read too.
So,
do you want to tell about our youngest too?
Yeah, totally. So, and going off on Sylvie, I mean, we're trying Ascend this year. Like, that's what I love about all the options is we can try it, and each year it might be different. So.
And your math with her. Yes.
Oh yeah. So, and we're actually going to be doing math at home with her.
I'll be teaching her the math this year.
Yeah. So John's love is math. So
I do love math.
So I love that he loves that because math is not my strong point, but I am learning better with the kids. But yeah, so our youngest two, I homeschooled last year, and I'm homeschooling this year. And I don't even like to say school, because school to me is almost that box, right? Like we're home educating. But it's fun because each of them, obviously my first grader, it will be a little less because we're focusing on his, we're going to be using the ESA through the state, but because he needs some speech, so he'll be doing speech.
Oh, the children's opportunity
First Fund.
scholarship, yeah.
And so he'll be doing speech, and then we've bought, like, he'll be doing language arts and math and some science and history. He loves science.
Yeah.
He keeps wanting to do space science and things like that, so it's super fun. And then Autumn, is like third grade age, she's really excited. We're going to be doing animation through my tech high, and then she'll have math and science. All of my kids love science, really. That's what's super fun. They love doing the experiments or going out, or it's just the hands-on learning is awesome. And even with history, the stories they love. So that's kind of what, and then of course, the language arts. My girls, 3 of them really love to write. So a lot of times it's like they just will pull out a computer, a pencil and paper, and just start writing stories, which is super fun, And actually my second child, Kate, has inspired that in them because she wants to be a writer. So she'll write books with them, and it's super fun to watch that. They actually have a love of learning, because we noticed with our oldest child, the public school system never really fit her, and we kept trying different options like charters and different things to fit her. And actually a few days ago, I sat down with her and like, hey, let's choose your history this year, because history to me is one of the most important subjects, And
I would say that one of the, I don't know what the right word is, but one of the things that happens in a traditional school is the history classes focus a lot on like the dates and the names and the things like that, but they leave out but what should we learn from that? What's the guiding principle of that? And that's what I've loved about learning about history lately. So,
yeah.
And so, sorry, I interrupted.
And then the dates and those come with it. Because
Yeah.
you remember the stories.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The stories of why did the founding fathers write the Declaration of Independence? Why did the Pilgrims cross the Atlantic Ocean to come to the United States? Like those why questions of why did Columbus decide to sail and try and find whatever he was finding? What was his purpose? And when you learn those stories, like the history sticks with you a lot more.
Well, and then it applies, all these stories apply to your world now too. Like, because if you notice, history tends to repeat it, like circle. So it's just, and I mean, just Kate at Ascend has learned that. Like, this is kind of where we're at now with history.
Then the individuals become realistic to you, and you learn those qualities, or even those not so good qualities, but can learn from that as individuals.
Because when you say with like last year when we talked about Joan of Arc, our girls especially wanted to be like Joan of Arc, and actually one of mine pulled out one of our Joan of Arc books and was like, Mom, can we read this together? Like, like where in life, when she comes upon a situation, she'll be able to liken herself, to Joan of Arc and hopefully emulate those qualities. Yeah. So, but going back to my 16-year-old, I'm like, let's pick your history, right? And she's like, oh, Mom, I don't like history. Because, she's been into learning the facts. And I'm like, let's give it a try, because I think, Brooklyn, if you learn the actual stories and how they apply to you, you'll love them. And she wants to do the Reformation and Renaissance era through our American Heritage Family School. And then we just sat down and talked about, like, look, there's William Tyndale and, all these people and their kind of just the brief summary of their stories. And she sat and had a discussion with us. And I said, so if history is like that, would you love it? And she was like, yeah. And it was actually getting close to bedtime.
It was getting close to midnight, let's be clear.
and we're like, it's time to go to bed. She's like, but I like talking about it. So it was fun to see like the switch of, okay, maybe history can be fun. And that love of learning in the kids. Like,
just encouraging them.
Because just us learning with them, I've got more excited with learning as well. So
I know we come to Earth with that zest to learn and grow.
Oh,
It
yeah.
just doesn't end, when you get out of your early childhood years by any means.
I know. Well, think about us growing up on the ranch. We are always out exploring and going different places. You know what I'm saying? You're born with that curiosity and love, and we should be, and not killing it.
Hamper it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think that's our roundtable for the day. So I think it's been a good discussion. And anyway, we just wanted to introduce ourselves to the audience, and we'll be doing, I think, these roundtables periodically, and because they're
discussing different things in education.
Yeah.
So, and what we're learning.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Can't hold us back.
Yeah.
we'll talk if you let us.
Yeah. So, but thanks for listening to our podcast, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Dimond Education podcast.
You can connect with us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
At Dimond Education, DIMOND, or on our website, dimonded.com.